Welcome to the Content Magazine podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Hello.
Today we talk to Genevieve Hastings. She's an installation artist and the director of the Art Ark Gallery in San Jose. Hey Genevieve, how you doing? This is Daniel. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, nice to hear from you, Daniel.
Yeah. So, I'm excited to talk to you and kind of hear about what you're up to. I definitely want to start with your own personal art practice. Kind of give us a little history of your own artistic expression with that, and then we'll transition to what else you are up to.
Sounds great. I did my undergrad at San Jose State, and I did my my master's at San Francisco State. And like you said, I'm a multimedia artist. The last big installation I did was last spring, actually, down in near Joshua Tree.
Oh, cool.
And it was for a sound art festival. And I made this, well that had this speaker that was filled with water. And I created a soundtrack based from the landscape. I had done a bunch of audio recordings down there in previous years. And so I took different tonal ranges that sort of kind of came in and out, faded in and out, and they created these beautiful patterns in the water. And it was sort of about my relationship to the desert and searching for water, which was, it's just kind of this futile thing. It was a really, it was great being part of that festival.
Yeah.
And then other than that, I've just been doing kind of smaller projects. And lately, in the past several weeks, I have organized my studio top to bottom.
Oh, awesome. Productive.
Never been so organized. Yeah.
I guess with the kind of shelter in place, you've actually used it to kind of organize your studio space. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've organized my studio space. I've done tons of projects that I've been meaning to do for a long time around my house. And actually, for the gallery is on site. I live on site with the gallery, so I've been able to work remotely with the artist, whose name is Oliver Klink, who's had a show in there, and he did this wonderful virtual tour of the space, and then he did an artist talk where he selected certain images from the show and talked about them, told these amazing stories about traveling, about the people in the photographs. And so that was, instead of Art Ark Gallery's First Friday event, we did a virtual tour. Yeah,
that's cool. You've been doing your work, but recently you've been much more active in being the curator for the Art Ark, correct?
Yeah, so I'm the director, and then I do curate some of the exhibitions, and then sometimes we have guest curators. And I've also been doing another project through Affordable Housing Access, where I place, it's a community engagement program, where I place artists in affordable housing communities to do these great projects. And that's had to shift a lot this past month as well, because, the whole goal of it is to one-on-one interaction. And we've done mural projects. We had a puppeteer go in and teach puppeteering a workshop for kids, and built like a, stage for them. We've had people do all kinds of a garden project where she did a seed library, and so it's been really fun. But this past month it was, we just did a handout that was, ways to thrive instead of survive times. And so it was a great workbook that had all kinds of links to information, and breathing exercises, and ways to stay connected remotely, and coloring pages, and things to do with kids, lots of ideas to do with families, since like a lot of people, I now have a 10-year-old at home with me all the time, right, it's great. We're doing, creative homeschooling, and
So then, for the projects that you're just talking about, how is that funded, and who's putting those on? How's that come about?
So affordable housing access is they're based out of Southern California, but they work with affordable housing properties throughout California and the Pacific Northwest, and I think even in the Southwest a bit. And they funded a project that I started. I guess I started working with them 2 years ago. So every month I'll take an artist, and the artist gets paid through the program.
Yeah.
And then they get a materials list, which is really amazing. A lot of times they have, excess materials that they can, use for their projects too. And
Yeah.
And I do all the research. I select artists from the community and place them in the community that seems best suited to what they're doing. So there were certain properties that were really kind of dark and
Yeah.
felt a little dismal. And so I worked with an artist who did a beautiful mural that brightened up the space. And
Awesome.
and a lot of times the kids, for the first mural project especially, we had like 15 kids from the community come out, and it was a 3-day mural project, and the kids like contributed and all got to sign their names. And it was this huge source of pride that they had, and they brought their families out to look at what they had done. And
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really
How did you get involved with that?
Actually through the gallery. There was a woman contacted me and said, she was doing this, working with an artist up in Seattle, I think it was. And that artist was kind of doing the same sort of thing, and she had ties to the community up there, and she was like, came to visit Art Ark. She flew in for a quick meeting and then flew out after our lunch. But she said, you'd be perfect for this. The artists in the community, you have a connection to affordable housing sites. So it worked out perfectly. And she left shortly after I started the project, and the head of the company just said, hey, you take this over for the Bay Area and you run this. And
wow.
It was an awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
They give so much support to communities and artists, which, as an artist myself, I'm always trying to find a way to get artists paid for materials and paid for, their time. And
so you've kind of, your role and kind of where you are in your life, it seems like you're doing a lot of advocating, presenting, and making artists have connections and spaces, right? So, it's kind of interesting. Is that something that you kind of like, have you just throughout the years it's kind of folded into that, or is it something you kind of always had been thinking about?
That's such a good question, and I love that. I love that. In grad school, and before grad school, actually, all of my work has always been very participatory.
Yeah.
And having objects that people can play with and be curious about and explore, and touch and handle. That's like been a very big part of that work. And then as I moved into installation art, one of the big distinctions I made was that the art isn't even the art unless you have somebody participating in it. I curated a show with these amazing 4 artists, but I titled it "There Is No Art Without You," and it's like it was all about this kind of idea that participation makes gives life to these installations. And so I think the participant or the person, the community, in whatever case it is, all of that has been very integral to everything, and it sort of evolved into this more in an engagement that's more, like you said, advocating for artists and advocating for communities that are less privileged, or have fewer resources.
That's cool. So then what is it like, even for you to begin to do the installation art, and then that has led to this next kind of like being the director and the curator and doing the stuff in the housing areas. Um, how did that even come to be? Like, a lot of artists, they want to express and paint or do their music, and of course they want feedback. But how did you even get into the ideas and the thoughts of doing installation art?
Oh, so I never felt like a creative person. I was making projects as a kid all the time, but I was like, oh, I'm not an artist. I'm not a creative person. And at some point when I was an undergrad, I realized that I had switched majors a million times. And a lot of them were more, they were really more about forming connections between disparate things. I did comparative religious studies. I was studying linguistics for a while. So a lot of like kind of comparing things and engaging with different cultures or different communities.
Yeah.
And then I switched schools, and I realized that I could do art and I could research anything I wanted. And art could be, all of these things. And that was really exciting. So I started taking a lot more art classes, and when I realized very quickly that the art I wanted to do wasn't about, my creative drive so much. It wasn't about me like sitting down and making something so much as it was me making something that was going to engage someone else, that was going to, like do something, serve a function. Like the tactile thing was always really important, because as a kid, I always wanted to go to a museum and touch things.
Yeah, totally.
I think it was sort of born in that idea of like, I want to create something that can and sometimes shift somebody's perspective of what this is.
Yeah.
I had a show at the San Luis Obispo Museum of Art, and I had 3 massive installations. And my favorite day was a group of 40 second graders came into the gallery, and they jumped on everything. I had a car, this art car, and they were like bouncing on the car, and they were turning the knobs of this dial, and they were like, at some point there were like 20 paper airplanes flying across the gallery, and I was like, this is amazing. And by the end of the day, like nothing had been broken. I was like, now I'm an artist. I can withstand 40 second graders. And they're the conversations with them were also just amazing. They were, were like, I didn't know this was art. Like, I thought you weren't supposed to touch art. And they had ideas for how I should change things were just so creative, and, there's just so much freedom.
Yeah. That's cool.
And that was the best reward. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess that's the thing is like, we generate, you say art, it's got kind of like a static, there's the artist and then there's the observer or something like that. But when you think in terms of creativity, right? Then it can be more participatory, and that's kind of interesting that you're doing. I'm always amazed at installation artists because they usually do such these big projects. Even if you were talking about your project in the desert with the water and the sound and everything, I'm just thinking like that is so much work. And I mean, it's all a lot of work, but I've never kind of like, someone will build this entire structure and be in the middle of the gallery for people to walk around, and you have this interaction with it, and you see, and then it gets taken down, and I'm always like, how is somebody going to sell that? And someone's not going to put this in their house, So I've always thought that, installation artists are an interesting group of people.
Yeah.
What's some of your thoughts on installation artists in general?
Well, I think it is. There's so much work involved, like you said, and there are these big things that don't really live on the way they're, that you've designed them as an artist. But I think there's this really wonderful part of letting go with installation art, that you work so hard towards something and then it's done and you let it go. And all of my pieces, I had this 8 by 10 foot shack, and it's now somebody's art studio in
Oh,
Oakland,
cool.
and I
Oh, cool.
had a 25-foot covered or 20-foot covered bridge that's now an actual bridge
Oh,
in
wow.
Colorado.
That's
And
cool.
one of my cars like flew, or took a ship across seas and is now in somebody's collection, and not necessarily as an art car, although he definitely, like, he made this little video of its arrival
Oh, that's
into
fun. Yeah.
Scotland,
Yeah.
and it's it's history, but he's like a private car collector. So
Yeah.
so I think there's a lot of there's less attachment to installation art, and I think
Hmm.
also installation artists are scrappy. we
Yeah.
we reuse things, and
Right.
we repurpose materials, and but I guess a lot of all artists do that to some degree. They paint over canvases,
Yeah.
and they um,
But it seems to be like it's the interaction, right? That's you're really
yeah.
going for, as you kind of said, like it's the interaction. I mean, so then would you describe yourself as being like you're a real like people person or community organizer type person, or like are you just a people person? Is that what you kind of would say, or?
I would say I love people, and yeah, I'm a people person. I also have my very introverted sides, and
Sure.
I need quiet and alone time. But I definitely, you know, in this whole like the past few weeks, I've been thinking about the people who come to every first Friday and walk
Yeah.
through that door, and I'm just so happy to see them. I'm so grateful that they come every month, and that they're just like they're such an important part of the community.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just have so much like gratitude towards that. So I definitely love this idea of community, and I love the fact that I do have that experience of like being so connected with like the arts community, and
Yeah.
and
What's some of the ways that you think you have learned about yourself during this kind of transition of what normal is?
oh, I've definitely I've acknowledged things that I've known about myself. I'm a very busy person, and I always have like multiple projects going on.
Yeah.
And so I've definitely learned that that I like to see progress and have forward momentum in things. I've learned that I think I am more, extroverted than I sometimes think I am, because I really do miss people. And I have my partner and my son, and I live together. So it's not like I'm,
Fully
not like I'm,
isolated. Yeah.
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 But I also, I also realize that I like my alone time too. So
Yeah.
hence all the studio organization. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. 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 When I think of you, I think of almost like I get like a vision of like a ship or an explorer, just as what you've been talking about, I don't know, like, someone who's out there on the water making things happen, even when you're talking about, how you went from comparative studies or comparative religious studies to linguistics, like kind of like not a wanderlust, type of thing, but more of a curiosity explorer aspect. Do you think that's kind of part of your personality, like a real curious explorer?
I absolutely love that you just said that. Yeah, I do. I definitely feel that. I feel curious about all kinds of things, and I'm constantly researching things, and I get really excited about stuff, and I want to share it and be part of it and get other people excited about things.
Yeah.
I would definitely. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's cool. So, what do you have then? Like, as you look at your life, do you have kind of like a personal mission statement or a reoccurring thought or quote or philosophy that kind of drives you and steers your ship, so to speak?
Oh,
Like the way I brought that back.
yeah, that was so good. I feel like at the heart of all of it is gratitude, like this idea of like love and gratitude and human connection.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my personal life, my professional life, my community life, like all of the different roles and connection and love and gratitude. That's so important.
Yeah, yeah. What's some ways then, how do you cultivate gratitude in your life?
Well, I think on a daily basis, I'm, you know, the people who I'm closest to, like it's part of our conversation. And this kind of, it's sometimes hard to stay positive if you lose sight of how much you have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a daily conversation. It's something, I meditate occasionally, and a lot of, I do this little gratitude practice where I take a deep breath in and I like send out, like love and gratitude to people in my life. It's also just great breathing.
Yeah.
Sometimes taking that deep breath. And I think also, as I've had lots of virtual conversations with people, just pointing out all of the things that I've been experiencing that I'm grateful for, and the fact that like everybody's working so hard together, and I'm seeing a lot of like compassion and a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
And having those conversations with people, I think, is really wonderful too, because then they're like, oh yeah, that's great. I see those things too.
So then, tell me about studying comparative religions, and then tell me about studying, you said linguistics, right?
Yeah. So
what's all that about?
So I started at a community college, and I just kept switching majors. I also did anthropology, and I did English lit. I love reading, so I was like, this is a great major for me. I just get to read all the time. But I eventually transferred to UC Santa Cruz, and they had an amazing linguistics department there. So I started studying linguistics, and that was just fascinating. I started reading Noam Chomsky's earlier works on language, and my goal was to learn 5 languages, which I'm still working on Spanish.
Yeah, it is fascinating. It's very interesting how language comes out of even philosophy and religion and culture and politics and relationships, like how those all are intertwined. It's pretty interesting, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no way of studying something and it just being a language. There are no, this idea of like a language being a static thing is so, it evolves in different, you have different words for different things in different cultures. Even though it's the same language, you have, different phrases, and all of that does tie back to the people and their experience in the culture. And I spent many years, like, the thing that I would associate with myself, I love this idea of the ship and me being an explorer, because traveling has been such a huge part of my life. When I was 18, I went to Europe. I went backpacking.
Okay.
I knew nothing. I went backpacking by myself for a month, and I came back, and then when I was 19, I spent 6 months in Southeast Asia, and that was just
incredible.
like a mind-blowing experience. It was the first time I had really experienced other cultures, and I lived in a village in Nepal for 3 of those months, and so I got to really immerse in the culture and the people, and it was a really wonderful experience. And so one of the things last year I started doing, which I'm looking forward to hopefully doing again this year, is I'm trying to find a sister gallery overseas for Art Ark.
Yeah.
And so I went to Dublin last summer, and then I went to Lisbon. And so it was this kind of amazing, I talked to people in these kind of alternative spaces about doing art exchanges and
that's great.
Connecting people far away.
That's incredible. Well, you really are the people connection. I mean, comparative religions, anthropology, linguistics, English lit, the gallery, what you're doing, like it all really is related to kind of this real kind of social experiment. I mean, would you describe yourself as like a community builder?
I will now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's just label you that. Let's do it. Like,
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah. I mean, having a gallery space, like being in charge of a gallery space, right? You're thinking in terms of how is the artist going to be able to interact with the guests that are coming in, right? So you're thinking about physical space as well as kind of like the emotional space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh.
Yeah. So, explain to me, like, how do you make a living with the, I know that you've been running the gallery, the Art Ark, and yet I'm like, oh, this must be a volunteer type position or something like that. So I'm trying to figure out what's the means of being kind of like this community builder and artist in Silicon Valley? How the heck does that work?
That's an excellent question. So, as with every artist or anybody in this kind of art field, I have many jobs. So,
right. Yeah.
So one of the jobs I do get paid for the community engagement, a small amount a couple times a year. I get paid. I do art install. I do a lot of art installation work.
Yeah. Who do you do that with? Like with different galleries and art? And yeah.
I'm mainly up in Berkeley.
Okay.
The David Brower Center, Berkeley Art Center.
Did you help?
Galleries.
Yeah, did you help at the Museum of Art or something like that?
Yes, yeah. I worked. Oh, I love them. Rich Carson is so amazing. I worked at the San Jose Museum for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the installation. That means you're there with the level and hanging things right and painting the walls and putting the letters up that describe the show. That right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really, I actually worked there when I took Art Ark over, and we hang our own, I do all the vinyl installation at Art Ark, and I got a vinyl printer for us to, really take it up a notch. But I learned so much about, precision and doing things the right way from the museum.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is its own thing. You have to do lighting. I have two amazing volunteers at my gallery. Amarise she just does just about everything, and then my friend Alex, who's does lighting every single month, which is he has a background in that. So there's a lot of we have a lot of great support over there too. But
so then you. What's the other hats that you wear then?
Fabrication jobs. I taught a furniture making class at Mission for a while.
Oh, wow.
So woodworking, I'm trying to think. It's been so long since I've made money. I don't remember.
Well,
I know there's a lot of things, but
it's interesting just to see like the different types of things, and it fits when you really as I sit back and kind of like look as I'm thinking of the puzzle of your life, right? You know what I mean? Doing installation art, right? I mean, you're starting to work with all these different kinds of materials, right? So you learn how to use a drill, you learn to do electrical, you learn to and paint, and the next thing you know, it makes sense that you'd be helping in installations at a gallery, and it's kind of fun to see those kind of things. It's also interesting just to see how most of our lives aren't these just do A and then you get B, but it's this kind of this process and this journey.
Yes, I love that. I remembered one other thing. I did a wallpaper job for a restaurant a few months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Wallpapering.
That makes sense, though.
And painting.
That's just putting vinyl letters, one big vinyl letter on a building.
Exactly.
So then, as you look at I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like the different things that have converged in my life kind of have led me to what I'm kind of doing now. Do you feel like you're in that kind of spot, or do you feel like there's some other things that kind of need to coalesce in your journey, or do you feel like this is a really sweet spot? What would you say? Or you feel there's a little more, the ship still is offshore a little?
I feel like, oh, that's such a good question. I feel like I'm definitely on the right path. Like, if there was a path in those waters, I would be on it. And it really wasn't until last year that I sort of took inventory of all the things I was doing, and all of, like, really got to experience how everything was so connected. I was like, oh, I did these kinds of jobs for a long time, which led me directly to here, which ties into all these other things. And I feel like there's, I'm sure this isn't forever right now. And it does feel like I'm ramping up a little bit, and that everything is just going to, come into more focus.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Refining, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a journey.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. Well, I definitely want you to plug the Art Ark. So to tell us, like, how people can follow and how they can even be involved in something, maybe even immediately.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, great. So our website at Art Ark Gallery is www.artarkgallery.com. On the website, there will be ways to engage and ideas for upcoming projects, and all the information for all of our shows that we've got going on over the next few months. And then if you want to see the sound art piece, that's on the video's on my website, which is www.genevievehastings.com.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Last thing then, when someone comes into Art Ark, what do you want them to experience?
Oh, this is also one of my big things as an installation artist. I want everybody to engage as much or as little as they want. We always have food, we always have music, we have, great conversations, and I want them to get whatever they want out of it. There's always, the artists are always there, like, willing to have conversations about the work. There's, lots of our like, monthly patrons are there, and they would love to talk to you about this show or any of the other past shows. And there's always, if you care, there's always educational information, like a write-up on the exhibition. And so really, I want you to explore, get as much of it as you want. Be curious.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your work that you do at the Art Ark, and then just for our art community. I really appreciate it. There's always such great quality exhibitions going on there, And, best to you and your Shelter In group. And we'll definitely be connecting. Maybe we'll actually see each other in person sometime again.
That would be wonderful. And thank you so much. Thank you for all you're doing for the community, as always.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, well, have a great day. Thanks.
All right, you too.
Okay.
Bye, Daniel.
Bye. In addition to publishing Content Magazine, SV Creates provides resources and training for the arts community. Each week we'll be checking in with Alyssa to see what's going on with SV Creates.
Hi everyone, this is Alyssa. I'm the program manager with SV Creates. On April 22nd, we're looking forward to offering a short webinar on crisis communications with Matt Lerman from Social Prosperity Partners. We're collaborating with Californians for the Arts and Theater Bay Area to bring you this free webinar. Check out our website and social media for links to register.
Cool. Thanks, Alyssa. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Please follow us on social media at Content Mag and subscribe by going to our website, content-magazine.com. This episode's music is Muddy Water from Sakura's 2020 release, Coming Home Soon. You can find Sakura on Spotify.